The cost of IT in business can be staggering. From hardware and software expenses to services like internet and phone, you don't need to spend a fortune on IT to succeed. If your organization spends more than $500 monthly on any service, or you're considering signing a long-term contract, IT Enabled can help you manage your technology and minimize your costs. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation. IT Enabled, we're here to help.
Hi, I'm Tara Watson-Watkins, President and CEO of the Lufkin, Angelina County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Connect podcast, connecting business to the community. I'm here today with my co-host, Blake Pollino with BP Media Group.
This week, we have Lee Miller of MSGPR on the podcast to talk about a really cool business and group of businesses here in East Texas that spreads all over the world. Super cool story. So let's get into that now.
We're honored today to have our good friend Lee Miller with MSGPR. Thanks, Lee, for joining us on the podcast.
And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's your first time here. We're glad to have you. So why don't you kind of give a brief overview of MSGPR? I know you have several divisions that go along with that. Why don't you tell us about all that and tell us about you?
Well, we like to call it kind of a family of companies, but MSGPR, based here in Lufkin, has a number of different divisions or areas that we specialize in. Obviously, the PR and media business. I jumped into the media business. My last day of student teaching, I was going to SFA to be a band director. My last day of student teaching, got a job in television at KTRE, and the rest is history in regards to that. But MSGPR does media and public relations, advertising, all of the different things that go with that. And we also have MSG Legal. A lot of people don't really know about that much because they don't deal in that world with attorneys and the courts. But we have court reporters and videographers and do courtroom support all over this part of Texas and Louisiana. And that's another big part of our business. And that's our Frank Street office. Okay. So we've got multiple offices around town, not just what we call the little house with big ideas right down from the chamber on Chestnut. But we also have Texas Forest Country Living magazine, which is an online digital magazine. We also have Dr. TV, which is a national Diginet television network that we run from Lufkin, and also based out of here is Video ID Teleproductions, which is our northern branch of MSGPR, based out of Peoria, Illinois.
Interesting. I didn't know you guys went all the way up there.
We're worldwide now.
Yeah.
We have offices in Saudi Arabia, Israel, Honduras, and a number of places around the U.S.
Very cool.
All based out of the little house.
Out of good old Lufkin, Texas.
Right.
Well, tell us about MSGPR and all that you do in East Texas. I know that you do media production, but you also do like restorations, duplications, things like that.
That's something that we did for many years, doing the, taking VHS tapes and 8mm and film, and we stopped doing that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
But
I have stuff that you actually converted.
Yes, but we have brought it back. Misty Boggs, who is pretty much our general manager, creative services director, has brought that back within the last 2 weeks, matter of fact.
Good.
We have purchased some new equipment to be able to handle film transfers and all the different transfers, and we've gotten back into that business because, I mean, literally people beat our doors down wanting us to do that, and just friends and family alone, and we said, well, we don't really do that anymore. Well, would you please do it for us?
Yeah.
And so finally Misty gave in and said, okay, we're going to make the investment in the equipment again, and get some more modern equipment. Equipment upkeep was one of the biggest issues in doing all of that. Sure. But we've made the investment now, and we're back into that business.
Good, I will bring a box to Misty.
There you go. So you don't have to send it off, and that's where we were kind of resorting to now. You have to send it off, and it's very expensive, and you don't know if you'll get your stuff back. And so we're happy to do that. Misty also takes care of our book division. We have a book publishing division, and we publish a number of books. She's got another one coming out for a client this week out of Dallas, and So we do a lot of books, and matter of fact, they beat me up in my coaching. I encourage people with companies and entrepreneurs to write their own books. You need a book. And I was teaching that this summer to a group, and they go, "Where's your book?" And I'm like, busted.
It's a great question.
I'm busted. So I am through the outline processes in my book writing on entrepreneurship and what that means, especially having faith in God. And that's something that's a tenet of our company, and what we do is based on our faith as well, that we put a lot of trust in God and what we do for Him and what our company does.
That's great. Well, I don't think anybody in the East Texas area really realizes everything that y'all do and all that the different little areas that you touch. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You had mentioned worldwide before. Tell us a little bit about that. You guys are always somewhere just shooting crazy stuff and doing crazy stuff. And
we have been blessed to be put in many great situations, and a lot of that comes from our experience in broadcast and media. With over 40 years in that business, we now do a lot of broadcast consulting, and also in the public safety areas. We've now gotten into that as well, with major events. So, some people see my Facebook page and I'm at the PGA Championship or the U.S. Open or something like that. Those are all events that we touch, and our job there is to help the broadcaster, whether it be CBS or Fox or CNN or whoever that might be, in regards to major events. Those guys don't do major events all the time. Those are one-offs for them. They do the news all the time or whatever that is. And we help guide them in those processes. A lot has to do with the wireless world and managing those assets. And that's what brings us into public safety, is that to be able to manage those communication systems for major events that have lots of people, lots of media, to be sure that the public stays safe and that the broadcaster can safely and effectively do their broadcast as well without interference from outside sources. And there's lots of new interferences. You can buy a signal jammer off of Amazon. It's not legal, but you can buy it off of Amazon and walk into a public event and really mess things up.
You can, yeah.
And nowadays, a lot of people hadn't thought of that, especially in the public safety realm. So that's what's brought our entree into that area.
That's great.
To be able to help them write, communication plans, to be able to, what happens when we're back in the dark ages and that two-way radio, that sat phone, that cell phone doesn't work to communicate with your teams.
That's right.
And so we do a lot of that in our consulting as well.
Very interesting.
So just kind of a bizarre thing. Our international work gets us into some other things like cybersecurity and that sort of thing. A lot of things I really can't talk about at this point in time. But anyway, it's a great business to be in, and based here in Lufkin, Texas. We're really close to the airport, and some people go, close to the airport? You seem like that's a long way. No. I mean, it's basically, 2 stoplights between us and the parking lot? I mean, that's...
Well, you think about it. If you lived in a big city, you'd half the time drive that far in the same town.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Farther. Here in Lufkin, Texas, we can be to the airport quicker than most people that live in Houston.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this is a great place to be based.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a fun thing. Our businesses are similar in both being in media, but we find ourselves being based in Lufkin, but traveling all over for what we have to do.
Right, same thing with your business.
And we're just constantly, we were in Dallas every weekend in the month of January. And it's insane how often we're out of town, but we also serve these local communities that we have here. But it's crazy how much it's spread worldwide and internationally.
Well, and the beauty is you get to come home.
Yeah. So what keeps you here? But, that's a fun thing.
That's what we call Mountain View Ranch. And yes, there is a Mountain View in East Texas, in the Hudson area. There's a road named Mountain View. There is no mountain, unfortunately, but we do call it Mountain View Ranch, and that's where we grow our wonderful 70-foot pine trees,
Yeah.
and definitely like to spend as much time there as possible.
Yeah.
And with communications nowadays, I mean, just this morning I've spoken to 3 countries. I've attended meetings in 3 countries.
Sure.
It's like, 10 years ago, would you have ever done that?
That's right.
And so it's nothing nowadays to have that work all over the world, and to do it from the ranch and outside Hudson, Texas. So it's a good thing.
It is.
So I'm sure that you've been able to travel some to some of the different countries that you work with. Where's your favorite?
Well, my favorite destination right now is Cabo.
Okay.
That's that's the vacation place. Now, part of all my travel is the deal with my wife that we take plenty of vacations. It's like, okay, you're gonna go do the PGA Championship in New York for a week, so we're gonna go to Cabo the week before. It's kind of like that's the deal I have to make to.
We have
to
my wife and I
survive.
have the exact same deal, and we started. You may have done the same thing where, we get to travel to these exotic places, and at first I tried to take her with me, and she would realize that I was just working the entire time, so it wasn't a vacation, to go to, like we were filmed in Guatemala last year, and it's like she was really, really upset that she didn't go to that, and I was like, I didn't get to do anything there. In fact, we were in Cabo last year, and I didn't touch the water not one time. Like, I didn't put a toe in the sand. I didn't get in the pool at the resort. I was there 3 days, flew in, flew out. So yeah, you have to make those deals with your spouse that we'll just take our own trip, because these work trips are hard.
She does
to work
look
on.
at the work trip and go, okay, PGA Championships in Rochester, New York. No,
No.
I don't want to go
Yeah,
there.
I'll pass on that one.
Oh, Charleston, South Carolina, sure.
Yeah,
I'll
maybe
go
make
and
that work. Yeah.
I'll go shop while you play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we handle the U.S. Open tennis, which is always at the U.S. Open Center or the tennis center in New York. And it's a long event. So midway through the event, which happens to be Labor Day, the girls will come up and use our hotel room and go to Broadway shows and stuff. So they just want to use our
That's a good thing.
access.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But anyway, travel is a good thing. I love Israel, a great place. If you're into the Bible, it really puts a new insight on how you view the Bible. I mean, just simple things like, you hear at funerals the 23rd Psalm, he's going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Well, the valley of the shadow of death is a real place. It's not just an idea. It's an actual real place with these big craggly rocks and you go look and go, oh, I see why that's the valley of the shadow of death.
Interesting.
And they actually herd goats and sheep
Sure.
on that. It's
Yeah.
just kind of bizarre, but anyway, it puts new insight as you travel around the world to see these various things. And I have been blessed. Russia was quite an experience working there, and a number of people from Lufkin have been there and worked out of the Kremlin for a while. So that's a whole nother story. So
That's a whole nother podcast.
that is a whole nother podcast in itself.
I can imagine.
Well, we know that you have you've done definitely some successful projects on campaigns that you've executed. Why don't you tell us about those?
Probably one of our largest, most recent projects was the presidential elections in Honduras.
Oh, wow.
So we were called by one of our staff guys to, hey, I've got a friend that's running for president in Honduras. And this was 2 years ago, and said he really needs some PR help. He was kind of the fifth horse in the race. And we jumped in with our team and worked with the campaign, and they won.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And became in power in Honduras. Right now, a year ago, as we filmed this, January the 27th of 2022, the administration was brought into power, the new one, and took out a narco government.
Cool.
And that change over the past year has been in progress to redo Honduras, basically. And we're now working with a team based here in Lufkin for the telecommunications concession to rebuild the telecommunications infrastructure in Honduras, the country. So it's our goal in pretty much everything that we do, even internationally, is to see what we can bring back to Lufkin, Texas.
Yeah.
What can we base here? What companies can we bring in here to help us with these projects?
Sure.
And that's kind of one of the mindsets that we have in building this community.
I love that. It boggles my mind. We talk on this podcast often about, local businesses and what they do for the local community. There are so many businesses in Lufkin that have international presence and are doing really, really big things also outside of Lufkin that people don't realize.
It's very bizarre to come across people from Lufkin when you're out in other parts of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is happening more and more now.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Well, we just appreciate you coming on and telling us all that you've got going on. And I know, like you said, there's certain things you can't even begin to talk about. But I think that it just stands to, the test of time of what MSGPR is doing and all of the different aspects that you're able to touch across the entire world. So congratulations on your success.
Thank you. And we've got a great team here in Lufkin, Texas, and love calling it home.
Well, we love working with y'all, and we love working with your team. Misty always takes great care of us. So
yeah, and got a shout out to my son Josh. So we're now and my father, who worked for our company for over 20 years, also. So who recently passed. And but Josh has been very, very involved in MSG as the COO. So
that's right. Josh always takes care of us at banquet. He's always back there working on the computer and making sure everything's going smoothly.
He really has a heart for the production side,
great.
side of things, and is also very involved in our church at Harmony Hill, where he's very involved in production there as well.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you, guys.
Great having you on the
Appreciate
podcast and learning more about you. And thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. We truly appreciate all of our listeners and everyone who tunes in. We couldn't do this without you, and we're so thankful for your support. If you want to watch the video version of this podcast, it's available on the Chamber YouTube page and on the Chamber Facebook page. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.